Hi everybody, welcome today on this snowy day. I don't know where you are in the country, but it's covered in snow here, so it's been really nice to go up the road and see everybody out making snowmen, etc. So today what I'm going to work on is we're going to do a nice stretch class today, and this is going to be particularly good if you're a runner or you go do a lot of walking. It's going to be a nice hamstring, calf and Achilles stretch. Now, if you've got one of these handy, this is called a yoga strap. It doesn't have to be, a strap like this. You could use a Dynaband. Some people have got the stretchy band things. This is a power band where it's a complete circle. But if you've got one of those Dynabands, that will do. Or if you've got a tie, that you put around your collar, something like that will be handy. And we're going to perhaps use these for some deeper stretches at the end of the class. All right. When we're doing hamstrings, there's just a couple of things I want to mention about stretching hamstrings, especially when to stretch hamstrings, you've got to do a lot of forward folding, a lot of forward bending. And which way your hips tilt is going to depend on whether you feel the hamstrings. So I'm going to give you a quick example of the way you don't want to do it and the way you do want to do it. So say, for example, I was trying to do a hamstring stretch seated like this. What a lot of people do is they don't have a lot of flexibility in their hamstrings. The hamstrings are tight and they shorten, which forces the tailbone to tuck under. And I see a lot of rounding in the back here. And there's no hamstring stretch going on there whatsoever. So you sometimes have got to bend your knees and you've got to stick your bottom out and then come forwards. All right. And I'm going to show you how to get the correct tilt in the pelvis. The pelvis needs to tilt forwards and the tailbone needs to draw back to lengthen those muscles in the backs of the legs. And it's the same principle when you're standing up doing forward folds. I see people with tight hamstrings rounding into the forward fold and rounding here in the lower back, whereas really the pelvis needs to tilt forwards and the tailbone needs to lift up. So before we start the session, I just want to talk to you about the pelvis. And there's different ways you can visualize this. You could visualize it as a bowl full of water, and the water at the moment is level with or parallel to the floor. Now, if I tilt my pelvis forwards, I'd be tipping the water out the front of the bowl. Equally, if I tuck it under too much, I'm tipping the water out of the back of the bowl. When the tailbone tucks under, we call it a cat tilt. When it tilts forwards that way, we call it a cow tilt. So sometimes you'll see people do cat-cow stretch. So cat's when you round up, when a cat sort of has a good old stretch out there. And cow is when you tilt forwards. And that tilting forwards lifts up the backs of your thighs, regardless of whether your legs are straight or not. You get that lifting up the backs of the thighs. And that's a dead area for a lot of us. We want to get some circulation in that area. A lot of us get a bit of cellulite in that area as well. So whenever we fold or hinge from the hips, always bend the knees, always hinge with that cow tilt, sticking your bottom up and then come forwards. And then you will inevitably start to round in the middle and thoracic spine. All right, so we'll come back to that later. It's just a couple of tips, but they are super important because often people will think they're doing hamstring stretches and they're not. They're just pulling here on the lower back and it's not great. So let's just warm up first. Put the hands behind you there to your tailbone and just flick your heels up for a moment. Okay, so we've always got to make sure the muscles are nice and warm before we start stretching them out. So this is going to be a good class. You can miss this bit out. If you've been for a run or you've been for a walk, or you've been doing some exercise, or even if you've been in a hot bath or a hot shower and you know your muscles are warm, you don't really need to do this bit. But we'll just do it because I'm thinking that we might have just got out of bed or we might be a bit cold. We've been sat or doing very little. So just warm up those hamstrings here. Keep going. We'll do a few more. We'll do 16. All right. And make sure you are warm. So if you need to do more of these, if you're super cold, then maybe do lots more of them. We'll do 8 more. Good. Let's do 4 more. And to warm up the hamstrings even more, let's take the feet hip bone distance apart and sit back into a nice old squat. Sit back into a squat. Bend the knees, bend at the hips. Just warming up these hamstrings. Always make sure when you're squatting, whether your feet are hip bone distance apart or they're wide or whatever they're doing, always check that your knees and your toes always point in the same direction. All right, knees and toes always point in the same direction. Keep going. Keep that going. I'm just going to turn sideways. So we're still squatting, yeah? And then we'll take it into a lunge. So big step back, drop the back knee, the front knee stays above the ankle bone, and then step forwards, feet hip bone distance apart. Other leg, step back onto the ball of the foot, drop straight down and up. And then just do a few more of these. Big step back. You've got to bend that back knee, everybody, okay? Bend the back knee. Warming up these hamstrings. Keep it going. So the first few stretches we're going to do are going to be kind of gentle stretches. I want you to focus more on getting the cow tilt in your hips. We're not going to go mad. And then as we start to warm up these hamstring muscles and calf muscles as well, then we'll go into some deeper stretches on the floor. All right? So always make sure you're nice and warm. And when you first go into the stretch, you've got to find that point where you start to feel it. And then you relax, okay? You don't want to go into it and keep forcing and forcing and forcing the stretch, because the muscles will just tighten up because they're protecting your joints. So you've got to go into it super gently. Good. Let's take the feet wide. Let's start off. Feet wide, knees and toes pointing forwards. Now, make sure the outside edges of your feet don't lift. If they lift, your knees are going to knock in like this. Keep the outside edges of your feet down and just very gently start to go side to side. Okay, side to side. So this is another movement you can do to warm up. So this is going to give us a hamstring stretch, a calf stretch, and an inside thigh stretch as well. So just keep it going again, side to side, so you can get a little bit lower into it. Again, make sure that the outside edges of your feet stay down. When the knees bend, make sure the knees are tracking your toes. So if your knees are facing forwards, your toes face forwards. If your knees are turning out, your toes turn out. Great. Okay, let's hold it on the right-hand side here and pause. Now, if you can't get your fingertips to the floor, you can use a block or put something in front of you to put your hands on, if you've got a chair, for example, or you can rest on your thigh here. Now, we want to keep the outside edge of that left foot down, and we want to feel this length in the back of the leg. Now think about this pelvic tilt. You're going to tilt your pelvis forwards, you're pouring the water out the front and you're lifting up from the back of that thigh. So come down, start to relax into it a little bit more. Think about lifting up the back of that left thigh. And just hold here. Now as soon as you start to feel a little bit of a pull into the hamstrings or the calf muscles, you don't keep forcing, you relax. You try and relax it. We'll hold for another 10 seconds. Keep the kneecap pulling up because the muscles work in pairs. So often when we're stretching the back, we want to contract the front. Good. Let's take it over to the other side. So start it off gently. Remember to keep the outside edge of that foot down. I'm holding these stretches for about a minute on each side. We're getting an inside thigh stretch. We want to pull the kneecap up. So this quad engages. We want to tilt the pelvis forwards. All right, so the back of that thigh is lifting. Back of the thigh is lifting up and away from that heel. And then you can maybe go down a little bit lower. Keep breathing. You're going to stay here for another 20 seconds. All right, you might be able to go a little bit lower as the muscle starts to gently release. So remember, this might be the first stretch you've done in this area for a while. So, no problem if you've got your hands on a chair, it's fine. Another 5 seconds here, everyone. And then we'll come back round to the center. Rest your hands on your thighs there with your knees bent. All right, let's do these pelvic tilts. So let's tuck the tailbone under into cat stretch. Notice my lower back now rounds. And then tilt the pelvis forwards, lift the sitting bones up into cow. So tucking the tailbone under is your cat. And then tucking the tailbone up towards the sky is your cow. So you're lifting up from here. You'll feel it in the backs of the thighs. When this tucks under, this muscle shortens, it doesn't lengthen. And then when you tilt forwards, it lengthens. And that's the tilt you want there. So hold that one there for me. All right, so you're in your cow tilt, your knees are bent. And then you're just going to start to slowly, if you can, start to lift up the backs of the thighs, straighten the legs a little bit more. They don't have to be fully straight. You just want to start to feel the lengthening here. And the lengthening is going to come into the calf as well. So if you can lift it up a little bit more. Again, you can rest on a chair if you want to. And then we're going to walk over to the right thigh, and we're going to bring the chest over that right thigh. Now really push away from the floor through that right foot and get a feeling of lifting the back of your right thigh up and away from the heel. So let's visualize these muscles running down the backs of the legs like 2 elastic bands or 3 elastic bands. And we want to lengthen those elastic bands, and we do that by pressing the foot down and lifting up from the back of the thigh. Take a couple more breaths here. Once you get into your stretch, try and relax and focus on your exhales. Every time you exhale, almost sigh as you exhale, and the breath, as you release it, will help release the muscle too. And then we're going to walk over to the other side. All right. And we start to push away from the floor through the left foot. We tilt the pelvis forward. So feel free to bend the knees more if that's what you need to do. If you find that the tailbone's tucking under, you definitely got to bend the knees more. Bend the knees so that you can tilt the pelvis into that cow tilt. Sticking the tailbone up into the air, the chest is over the thigh. And start to really get some lift in the top of the back of the thigh. And sometimes you know when the circulation is starting to go around that area because you feel a kind of tingling, a warmth in the top of the back of the thigh. And then we're going to walk the hands forwards, bend both knees again, bend both knees, rock forwards and back over the soles of your feet, and get your toes now pointing forwards. Inhale, lengthen the spine, go into cow tilt. So really start to lift up the tailbone and those sitting bones. You can start to straighten the legs. Maybe you can start to walk the hands through the feet, and you can just let your neck go. Let the spine relax. Now we're going to hang out here for a bit. If you can't get your hands to the floor, if you're up here somewhere, see if you can get a chair, or see if you can do it but at the end of your bed where you can rest your upper body onto something, or bend the knees more. It's okay to bend the knees. Let everything release. Be aware you're not sinking all your weight into your heels. And we'll just hang out there for a few more breaths and seconds, lifting up the sitting bones. Focus on pressing the feet down and lifting up from the tops of the backs of your thighs. And then to come out of this stretch, you could stay there longer if you wanted to, but we're going to bend the knees. We're going to come halfway up, wiggle the feet in a little bit, and then bring your hands to your thighs, and then slowly, slowly roll up and circle the shoulders. Bring the feet together. This is the classic stretch that you see people do in an aerobics class, or when they've done their jog or they're about to do their jog. We're going to put the right foot in front. We're going to bend the left knee, and then we're going to sit back. Now, what happens often in this stretch is people don't do the cow tilt with the hips. They do the cat like that. I see it so often, and I know for a fact there's no stretching going on there, okay? So what you've got to do is you've got to tilt, lengthen the spine, and lift up from here. And then you feel it. This knee does not have to be straight, and it certainly doesn't want to be locked out with you pressing weight into it, okay? So keep the knee a little soft, get that tilt there. That is what's going to create the stretch and lift, lengthen the spine. And then to feel it in the calf and the Achilles here, we draw the toe up towards us, and that takes the heel away from the back of the knee here. So we start to lengthen this muscle too. So draw the toe towards you. This is called flexing your feet. Pointing your feet, flexing. So to get a calf stretch, we need to flex our feet. Stick your bottom out, send your chest forward. So really accentuate that length there in your spine, and you'll really feel that hamstring and calf stretch. And then pause there. And if you've got the time, you could hold on to this for a couple of minutes. We're holding it for about a minute. Okay? So just stay there, feel that really nice stretch. And this kind of stretch is really good to prevent you from getting injuries, especially if you are a jogger. You always want to get a good stretch into your Achilles, calves and hamstrings after your jog. And then we're going to come up and we'll change sides. So we put the other foot in front, bend the back knee, and then we don't want the cat, we want the cow. Lift up here. So lift that up. You can see it. You want to rotate over your pelvis, yeah? Start to lift up. Remember, keep this knee soft. Don't lock out. And then draw the toe towards you and feel it in this calf and Achilles. And as soon as you start to feel a little bit of a pull, you don't keep pressing. You don't keep pushing. You then try and relax. So what happens is you start to feel a bit of a stretch. You pause. Try and release any of that tension that you're feeling, and then you can go a little deeper into it and pause. Release any tension that you're feeling, and then you can go a little deeper into it. So we want to make sure we're releasing, relaxing into it, not forcing into it. Big, big difference, okay? So stay there again. Don't worry if you don't go down too low either. So it's not, when you're doing these stretches, it's not about touching your toes. It's not about how close you get your chest to your thigh. It's about feeling the lengthening in the back of your leg. Good. And then we'll come back up. All right. Let's take the feet hip bone distance apart, hips, knees and toes pointing forwards. And we'll do a classic forward fold over the thighs. All right. So I'm going to turn sideways again. I want you to bend the knees when you go into this initially, and then when you're in it, then you're going to start to straighten the legs up if you're able to. All right. We've got to keep this cow tilt here. Yeah. We've got to lift up and over when we come forwards. We don't want that tucking under and then rounding when we come forwards. So let's bend the knees. Put your hands there into the creases of your hips there, and just start to tilt the pelvis forwards like this, and then start to hinge from the hip. So we're maintaining a little dip there in the lower back, just a little one. We're not coming under, tucking under and rolling forwards. So you bend the knees, everybody bend the knees, and be generous with that bend in your knees to start off with. Tilt and then start to hinge. All right. And then what you can do, you can rest on your thighs. You can start to push through the legs, and the sitting bones then lift up. If you start to find the tailbone tucks under, you've gone too far with it. All right, start to lift up from here. If you're comfortable, you can bring the hands to the floor. You can start to lift up a little bit more. The aim is not to get your chest on your thighs. All right, if it goes on the thighs, well done. But the aim is to lengthen there, remember. So some of you might be able to come down further. Some of you might be able to wrap round. Okay, some of you might be up here, resting on a chair, tilting that forward. You're all still going to feel it, because it all depends on how tight your hamstrings are. And hamstrings do give very, very quickly if you stretch them correctly. All right, so if you are tight, if you're up here and it's a bit frustrating and you know that you're struggling with it, that's not a bad thing. All right, gradually they will release. And if you do these stretches daily, I promise you within a couple of weeks, you'll be touching the floor. As long as you've got the correct tilt in the pelvis. If that's tucking under, it'll get no better. All right. So just hang out there. You can have a little sway side to side. Press away from the floor. And if you're comfortable, if you're okay, you would hang out there for a reasonable length of time. We'll just stay here for another 10 seconds or so. As long as it's at least a minute. And then when we come out of these stretches, always start by bending the knees. So bend the knees. You can bring your forearms to your thighs, and then you can slowly, 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 slowly roll up. Good. Let's take the feet nice and wide again. And we'll gently go side to side. And we'll hold it on the right-hand side. And then we're going to turn it all the way around. Okay, now let's pick up that back knee. So the right knee is lifted. We don't want the right knee bent now. What I want you to try and do is tuck your right toe under, push the heel away, pull this kneecap up so the quad here is engaged, and then we lengthen into the hamstring of this leg. If the tailbone tucks under like this, you're not going to feel it. You still got to feel like you're doing your cow tilt through your pelvis. And then really flexing that right foot, drawing the toe towards you, pushing the heel away, and you'll feel that deep stretch into the calf as well. So let's hold here. Check that front knee, everyone, is above the ankle and it's not going. You haven't got the foot back here and the knee doing this. It won't be great for your knee. So wiggle forwards the back foot or wiggle that foot back. Really lengthen into the back of that leg. And we'll just hold here for another 30 seconds. Tucking the toe under. Pulling this kneecap up, engaging the quad. So the knee's not bent like this. The leg is now straight. And visualize these muscles in the back of the leg lengthening. Good. Keep holding, everyone. We're nearly there. Strong on that left glute. So you've got to be strong to hold this pose. Okay, let's do another 10 seconds. Lengthen the spine. Keep the shoulders away from your ears. Okay, now bring that right knee to the floor. And let's stretch into the back of this left leg now. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to flex the foot. The knee is bent at the moment. I want you to do that cat tilt. So you've got you stick your bottom out that way. You don't want it tucking under this way, remember. So cat tilt and then start to draw back, keeping the cat tilt. As soon as you start to lose the cat tilt and your tailbone's tucking under, you're not going to get that stretch. Start to stick the chest forwards and the tailbone back. So try and keep that length from the tailbone, the crown of the head, rather than this rounding. So don't worry about how low down you go. Draw the heart forwards, draw the back of that left thigh to the wall behind you. So you get really good stretch there. So it's not about getting the chest to the thigh. It's not about particularly getting a straight leg here. In fact, you don't want to lock that knee out. The last thing you want is to press into the knee like this. Okay, so keep that knee soft. It's all coming here from the pelvis and the length in the spine. Good. We're going to come back up and we're going to come round and we'll take it all the way around to the other side. So let's start off in the runner's lunge, tucking that back toe under, pulling this kneecap up and sending that back heel back. So really start to let the hips melt down, lengthen your spine again and feel like you're going into your cow tilt with the pelvis rather than tucking under like this. All right, and then relax into your breathing, keeping that back toe tucked under, the heel pushing away so you feel it in the calf and the Achilles. Let's stay here for another 30 seconds. Just holding that stretch. Lengthening into the backs of your legs. Building strength into the quad at the front of your thigh. Another 15 seconds, everyone. And then we're going to bring the left knee to the floor. Well done. Point the toe away. Okay, let's bring the heel, come onto the heel of that right foot and flex the foot. So instead of the toe pointing, flex it. Now tilt. Start to send the thighs back. So if you imagine this is an elastic band at the back of the leg, now it's elongating and start to send the chest forwards. Okay, it doesn't take much to feel this stretch. You've got to get that sensation of tilting the pelvis forwards and drawing the back of the right thigh away from the heel. And as you flex the foot more deeply, you'll feel it in the calf. As soon as you feel it in the back of the knee or the calf or the back of the thigh there, don't keep forcing. As soon as you feel it, you need to relax. You need to relax and let it go. So let's just breathe here. Nice breaths. Once you've got into the position, nice deep breaths with a nice exhale as you release. Do another 20 seconds on this side. Always make sure that you do the same on each side, okay? Ten seconds, everybody. Last 5. And relax. Good. Okay, we're going to come into sitting. And we're going to go into this stretch twice. We're going to do it, first of all, very gently. So we're not going to go crazy trying to get our hands touching our toes or get our chests resting on our thighs. What I want you to do, and sometimes it can help to sit on a block to lift your hips up. If you know that you struggle with your forward bends, it's a good idea to sit on something to lift your hips up. And bend your knees, everybody, quite a bit and flex your feet here. Walk the hips back and sit as tall as you can and get this sensation of tilting the pelvis forwards. So a feeling of sticking your tailbone out. It's a cow stretch. It's not a cat stretch. Now, if you're sinking like this already, you need to make some adjustments. There's no good coming forwards like this. You need to sit on a block. You need to bend your knees more. You need to be able to tilt that pelvis forwards and get length in your spine and length at the front of your abdomen here. And then as we breathe in, we lift out of our hips And then as we exhale, we rotate over the hips and we start to gently come forwards. Now, with your arms, I want to see them relaxed. There's nothing worse in this stretch than seeing this. All right, that is doing nothing for you whatsoever. Okay, and people who do this will always look like that. It will never change because you're not lengthening or you're not stretching your muscles out. You're better off being up here looking like this. Okay, bring the toes towards you, everyone, so we get the calf stretch and the Achilles stretch. Let the arms relax and make sure you're leading from your chest, the center of your chest, your heart, and you're not leading from the fronts of your shoulders and your heart is sinking back towards the wall behind you there. The heart leads. The shoulders need to drop. We don't want the shoulders up here either. The shoulders need to drop away from the ears. So we're just going into this very, very gently because we're going to come back to it in a minute. Now, what you would do if you've got your knees deeply bent there, and next time you breathe in, you might walk your heels a little further away and you might walk your hips back a little. And then you might be able to relax a bit more further forward. So it has to happen gradually. So if you start to feel stiff, tight, or whatever, don't go any further. Only once your body is relaxed, you can walk your feet forwards, you can walk your hips back. Then you might be able to come forwards a little bit more. So we're going to come back to this stretch in a minute. We're going to come back up. And this is where you might want to use your strap or anything that resembles a strap. You don't have to use it. You can hold on to the back of the leg. But this time we're going to lie down on our backs with our knees bent. And we're going to bring the right knee in over the chest. And then we're going to send the right leg up. Now, when we send it up initially, bend the knee so it's super comfortable. And then you've got the option of holding the back of your thigh, holding your calf. Some of you will be able to reach your toe. Some of you might want to use a strap and put it around the ball of your foot there. Don't pull on that strap though. I see that quite a lot. You're not pulling on it. It's very light. Your elbows are bent. It's very light. And then what you're doing, instead of pulling the strap down, you're going to push your foot up into the strap. There's a difference. So my hands are just lightly touching that strap. I'm not pulling it down like this. I'm doing the opposite. I'm pushing my foot up into that strap. And then you could gently exhale and guide the leg over your chest a little bit more if you've got the flexibility. So now we've got to make sure our tailbone is sinking into the floor. If the tailbone lifts, then you're rounding your lower back and going into a cat stretch. We've got to keep the tailbone down and a natural curve to the lower back so we're maintaining your little cow tilt there. And then as you exhale, you gently draw over. Now, this is a really good stretch for your hamstrings. And you could hang out in this for quite a long time. You could hang out in this for 4 or 5 minutes if you wanted to. But we'll just stay here for a little bit longer. And if the muscle does start to release, we can start to draw the leg over. Have a feeling of sending the foot up into the ceiling. So really start to lengthen there in the back of that leg. Good, and then we'll relax. We'll try the other side. So start off by bringing the knee in over the chest, and then we hold on to the back of the legs. We gently take it up, or the calf, or we hold the foot. We flex the foot. We can use the band. We press up into the band, and we start to feel, you'll start to feel it, the stretch there. Now, be aware again, you're not pressing that foot into the floor and lifting your tailbone up. The tailbone needs to be sinking down. And then we start to open up the back of the knee. We start to draw the toes towards us. Relaxing into your breathing. And if it feels comfortable, you start to draw the leg over. As soon as you start to draw the leg over, there'll come a point, you'll reach your edge where you can't take it any further without forcing. So then you try and relax. You try and let these muscles relax. And as I said before, if you had the time, you potentially could stay here for 5 minutes. These are deeper stretches. But you've got to make sure you're super warm for the deeper stretches. Keep the toes pulling towards you so you feel it in the Achilles and the calf. And then we're going to release and relax. Let's come back up, everyone. And we'll come back into this forward fold again. One more time to see if we feel a bit more comfortable. So start with the knees bent. Always start with the knees bent when you go into a forward fold, whether it's standing or seated. Wiggle your hips back. And then inhale, tilt that pelvis forwards again. Lift out of your hips. As you exhale, start to relax forwards. Keep the arms super relaxed. Flex your feet. If you're comfortable, you start to move your heels away. You start to walk your hips back. You breathe up through the spine. Exhale and start to hinge. If you're relaxed, as you inhale, you can walk your hips back a little bit more. Inhale, lengthen up through the spine. Exhale, start to hinge. Let the jaw relax. You can let your neck go. You can let your head hang. So this is the lumbar part of the spine, is the part of the spine we do not want rounding. Eventually, the middle part, the thoracic spine, and the head will start to create a natural curve, okay? But this part needs to be flat. So we'll just hold here to finish off. We'll just hold here and we'll do 5 more breaths now. Every time you exhale, nice long exhale, nice ha sound, a sighing sound now as you exhale and go into this deep forward fold. 3 more breaths. Two more. And the last one. And then we'll slowly come up. Lean back, point the toes away, have a little stretch out. Come back round to the front. Take a little turn to the side. And a little turn to the other side. So hamstrings and calf muscles all stretched. Refer back to the video. If you go for a run, do some nice stretching. You can pick out one of those exercises and just get a good old stretch into your hamstrings for maybe 5 minutes. You don't have to do the whole thing. All right, so just some ideas for you. Have a great rest of the day. If it's snowing near you, make a snowman, have fun. And I'll see you all soon. So I'm here again Monday. I'm going to be doing a cardio class, Tuesday a strength class, Wednesday another cardio, and Thursday another strength. All right, so I'll see you all soon. Bye.